We heard, Shirley and Jeff and I floated around, we heard a lot of different things. All three tables talked about tweaking the existing system in some way, in particular adding in more products, but also recognized the difficulties of doing that and what does that mean for collection logs and DTSC determinations and things like that. We heard, a lot of disparate viewpoints on take back and EPR, and I think it's great that we got those out in the open and everybody heard those. So I want to open it up. We would like to know from you what else you think we should do. What other issues did we miss today? Are there things that we can do to get that consumers need more education to understand the true costs? What else do we need to do? And then we will reconvene. We'll do a postmortem after this and try to figure out what our next steps are. And I'll talk about that at the very end. So we want to just open it up now for 15 or 20 minutes or less or more depending on people's energy levels. Or you're all Aaron. Thank you.
Depending on what we decide to do or how we go forward, I know at a few of the tables today there was information brought up where DTSC would need to be involved, whether it's looking at Appendix X, adding products to the current regulations. Right. Not a concern, but how well can we all work together and get in the same room to accomplish the same goal? I know that's been a problem for everybody in the past, and I think for us to move forward with this program, stakeholders here, CalRecycle and DTSC all need to be in the same room working together. Otherwise, I don't think anything we've talked about today or the go forward will be successful.
Points well taken. I will note that Rita and Teresa from DTSC were here in the morning. We have a good working relationship with them, and so I will pledge to you that as we develop this, if there are specific ideas that are more in DTSC's purview, that we will bring them in and try to get them engaged in, yeah, they like that or they don't like it, or here's a way to approach that.
Thank
you.
I
appreciate that. Other comments? Jeff and Shirley, feel free to weigh in on if you've got questions that you want to pose to everyone.
Well, I'm curious as Jeff. I learned a lot today. I heard a lot today. I spend a lot of my days every day just focusing on the existing model and working with participants to keep it held together. What are the most urgent aspects of what we have now that need to be adjusted, addressed? Since this process will be a lengthy process, we have what we have until statute changes. What are the most urgent matters that need to be addressed now that the state is able to do?
This is Doug Coble with Sacramento County. A few of the points I've raised in the past have been, one, the differential on pounds, payment per pound for the CEW, whether it be an LCD screen or a CRT. By my estimates, the LCD screen should be getting paid more like around $1 per pound versus the 49 cents for the CRTs, just for the sheer cost differential and getting them. And I'm sure the manufacturers here will have their own numbers that they've come up with. But I think that is pressing because you've got the CRTs are now subsidizing the LCDs at this point. And I know it's hurting my processor, and he can speak for himself as well, but I know that's been a concern of his. And and then also the expedience in which a downstream disposal option or recycling option for this CRT glass, getting that approved more quickly so that the funds continue to flow.
Hello? Just to add on the one piece to LCD, I was going to bring up the same thing, is also looking at the way we document cancellation for flat screens right now, the make, model, and serial number. That adds a significant amount of labor into the process and weighing each one individually. So taking a look at that and figuring out how we can track cancellation more efficiently than what we're doing currently per the regulations.
well, I was going to say,
Jeff, one more, Jeff. Also, this is Doug again. Also, the other item I left out was the frequency at which CalRecycle is able to adjust the processor's payment every 2 years. And this was kind of expressed already, I think, before, but it should be market-based because these markets change dramatically, as we all know, and you guys just can't keep up. And the reality is, if the market depresses really quickly, it hurts the processors, which also hurts us at the county level. The way our contract is structured with our processor, we float with the markets. And we did that by choice to help share the pain and the joy when markets are good or bad. And we may be unique in the state on that, but I think it's something that should be looked at. And then I don't know, I can't remember, Howard, did that come out as it could be done without legislation? I'm trying to remember what the response was.
No, that's in statute, so that will require a change.
So I think that's one thing that should be getting pushed forward in whatever method possible to make it so CalRecycle is more nimble to be able to adjust.
Right, and we've discussed that in the past, and so I appreciate bringing that up, and it came up this morning. I think no matter what model we're in, it relates back to the question of differential payment rates and what's the universe of products and how many different rates do you have and how do you make it a manageable system, let alone all the collection log issues and things like that. If we are doing differential pay rates, what do we base that on? Right now we do our average net cost reports, and there are issues with that, but at least it's a base of data. But when you've got a lot of different technologies, how do you put them into categories that are reasonable and doesn't make it so crazy? But those are the kinds of things we have to explore longer term in these kinds of models as to what are some of the details and what might be some of the best ways to approach that. So, but definitely the payment frequency of the payment adjustments that's got to be done statutorily.
I don't know how fast this is, but my number one request is just to add more products as CEWs. I know that probably takes some cycle. But again, I would just recommend that we continue to have this collaboration, and probably we should maybe have some independent groups. So you get the collectors together, you get the local governments together, you get the recyclers together, you get CalRecycle together, you get DTSC together, so we can all define what success looks like for all of us, get the manufacturers together, because everyone's coming with a different agenda. And I think if independently you get the groups together, maybe you can get consensus from those groups that would help then you develop a more comprehensive plan and go forward to keep everyone happy.
Okay, appreciate that.
CalRecycle, by nature as a public organization, has to be careful about smaller groups and who we select. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, to commend Californians Against Waste and their efforts on recent challenges for the CRT markets in reaching out to recyclers in a way that the state really can't. We hear from the state, from the recyclers every day, but there's only so much coordination and singular opinion that we can develop as a state agency. An independent group, like an NGO like CAW, was able to, or has been able to, work with the recyclers, address the CRT issue, and propose solutions. And that might be a different approach to those types of groups that you're talking about, that is not limited by things that might limit a state organization.
Jeffrey Harding, Recycle San Diego. Just wanted to say thank you for doing this workshop today. It's been eye-opening and a lot of information to think about. But to answer your question, Jeff, what's pressing the small collectors is the mixed electronics that comes from the residential and small business waste stream being of no value and having a cost to us. Our processors are charging us for that. It's always been to get CEWs, we needed to take the non-CEWs. So when the weight is approaching 50% of non-CEWs to get CEWs, the CEWs are no longer worth collecting. because of the non-CEWs we have to take with it. And because of the aggressive efforts of collectors over the years to provide free collection services, when you tell a consumer they have to pay you, they just choose not to for the most part. And there's a lot of more illegal disposal going on, so that's a concern with me right now.
Other comments? This is your chance to grab the soapbox.
Howard, we had one comment from online asking, has anybody reached out to EICC, the Electronic Industry Citizenship Coalition? So we'll add that to the mix.
Okay, thank that person.
Thank you, Roseanne.
Well, okay, well, okay, we got it. Oh, Matt, go ahead. Thank you.
For Jeff, I guess, one more little thing I'd like to see in the system, just from a perspective of problems going sideways. A little more due diligence by everybody involved in the process, whether you're the consumer, a collector, or a recycler, or the end destination. There's no way that any state agency or NGO can keep up with the changes that are going on in the industry, the fluctuations in the commodities, the people that are going to process from outside the state that aren't regulated in those states very well or at all. There are places that glass has gone to that if somebody had done due diligence and weighed the information that they had available to them, the glass never would have went there in the first place. So we need to pay attention. I've made the analogy here at this table that there's 100 people speeding on the freeway, the police are going to catch 2 of them. So we're going to have 98 piles of stuff all over the place. So we don't want that. It's hard for us to keep up. It's like almost no-win situation. But if there's due diligence about who you do business with, collect it from, or who you send your material to, and who processes it for you. So that's kind of like my hope.
You're saying that DTSC won't pre-approve destinations?
Yes. It's only a temporary, even if we did.
Okay, while you guys are all thinking of more comments, we'll just keep it open for a couple more minutes. I want to offer thanks on a variety of fronts. One is, I want to thank all of you who participated today for being frank and sharing your ideas, and I think we all learned a lot. I don't think any one of us knows all the nuances of all these different approaches and things to think about. So you've given us a lot to chew on, and I'm not sure what our next step's going to be. We're certainly going to post the presentations. We will post a compilation of these notes and send them back out to you. They're not verbatim notes, but send them back out to you and make sure that we didn't miscapture anything or miss something. And so at least we'll have a record of, the things that were discussed. Then we're going to have to sit down internally and kind of really chew on this as to what's the next public step, whether it's some small groups, maybe that because of the kind of the constraints we have on transparency, we figure out a way to do that in little settings, but they're all together. Whether we put together maybe more detailed versions of these different models with questions and options and get into a little bit more truly in-depth on the details. So those are things that we might do, or just kind of thinking about it. No particular timeline. We're not under, the one thing I like about this is although we have big immediate issues, the recycling options, the costs of dealing with non-CEW, some of those kinds of issues, the frequency of the payment rate adjustment. We're not under a timeline where we have to produce the answer in 6 weeks or 3 months or 6 months. So we can iterate this quite a bit, and I think the value of it is that getting the stakeholders together, we are all going to hear some of the same issues. We may not have the same opinions, but if and when legislation does get introduced, there'll already be a much better understanding of what the different kinds of issues are, and I think that'll help inform that process quite a bit. Shirley?
I have one thing I'll add. Can't see you guys down there. In the survey, we asked what next actions and what next steps we should take. And a whole lot of folks said, we do need more data and we need some technical expert research. I wanted to sort of just remind myself what we looked for. So we're looking for things on how to research what would influence product design. What are CRT recycling options? Obviously, that's a complete project with DTSC or DTSC's project. I don't know. But those were things that came up. Materials management flow. We talked about, mentioned the circular economy, and is there resource recovery things that we should be looking at more closely? What are the recycling technologies for non-tech CRT devices? 70% of the survey respondents said we do need different statistics on the operational costs and volumes of managing non-CRTs versus CRTs. My question and I guess challenge to you today is how should we get that out of the, I'm sure most of you have, most of these questions can be answered or contributed to at least by your knowledge and information. So maybe we should ask for volunteers to provide data, but at least find a way to get us that information if you have ideas now, or if there's ways that we can pull that kind of data from you, or if you have other sources.
Yeah, just on the last point on costs, of dealing with non-CEW or different types of CEW, we have asked for voluntarily supplied information on those costs in general, but we haven't really made a concerted effort, and maybe that's something that we need to do, and to try and get some of that basic info for differential payments, or what would it cost to really do those kinds of things. So, Jeff.
Quick comment on that. If you guys have any university students who know numbers real well, who would be willing to bring them into our organization, I'd be fine to do that as a small collector, so they can look at my organization, see how we handle things, and come up with an analysis of that. So if you need volunteers, if you have university students that could do that, I think that would be a good start. They can make this part of their schooling.
That's a good idea, and I think that's something we can explore. I mean, right now, and I want to thank all of our staff who are in here, and Jeff has alluded to this. He spends, and I'm in the office next door to Jeff, so I hear him when he's on the phone with some of you. And, he spends, and our staff spend each and every day trying to figure out the claims and verify documents and deal with regulatory issues. And it's an enormous amount of work just to get that done and keep up with the system. So having the luxury to even have this workshop, we've had to really carve that out of people's time. And so we need additional sources of information. We need additional ways to get some of this done. That said, we don't have, even though there's a lot of money in the CEW payment system, we don't have a lot of discretionary money to do contracts anymore, for example, or to have interns, paid interns, or anything like that. So it's a good idea, and we'll have to kind of think that through. But I do want to thank all the staff who are in here or listening for the work that you do every day just to keep the industry afloat and the payments going, and trying to provide an oversight and integrity to the system. And to all of you guys are the good folks who are coming here today, you stakeholders, trying to figure out what's next on the system and how do we deal with some of these issues. I'm happy to call it a day. I just want to make sure I don't cut off any opportunities for folks to make comments. We don't have anything else online, Andrew? Nothing, okay.
I think what we'll be doing, in addition to all the follow-up and compilation, the specific questions like that you were asking, Shirley, we'll be posting those in the special web area that we've established for this initiative, for this project, and soliciting answers, opinions, perspectives specific to certain questions. We'll have to talk to legal about whether we can keep those conversations private if you prefer, but we'll have a place for people to follow up with us and keep this conversation going.
Yeah, we will take comments and suggestions anytime. You can email us, you can go through our futures page and send it to the email, or just talk to us. So that's an open invitation. I don't think you'll hear an awful lot from us in the very next few weeks or month, and other than posting things, because we're going to have to kind of sit down and think, what's the next step? What's the best use of your time and our time to take this to the next level of discussion? So I want to thank you all again. Thanks for sticking with it. It was a experiment in how we structured this because we didn't want to be really talking heads. We wanted to hear from you guys and for you to be able to hear each other. If you have written comments that you want to put on those yellow notepads, make sure that we get them. But obviously you can follow up with emails or phone calls or anything like that. So thank you again very much. Thanks for everyone who helped out in any way, and thanks for your participation. You bet.